Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Fariha Network podcast. I'm Zainab from the Instagram account Life at Number 35, and I want to start by wishing you all a very Ramadan Kareem. I hope you are all safe and well wherever you are in the world, and whether you're in lockdown like we are in the UK or not, I hope this Ramadan showers you with many blessings. So in today's topic, we're going to actually be looking at what Ramadan is like as a homemaker. And I want to give you my insight and experience with Ramadan, being at home, managing the home, and how I go about, trying to create a wonderful atmosphere and experience for my family and how I plan for it and organize, especially now that we are in lockdown and it's going to be very difficult obviously to see family and friends. It's going to be a very different sort of experience for us this year. I wanted to make sure that it was still very special and that we took the most out of it and take advantage of, being away from the world. I'm going to talk about that more later on, but I wanted to start by just giving you a little bit of a background about me. So me and my husband, we live in the UK, and we have two beautiful boys, Yasin, who is 5 years old, and Salim, who is nearly 5 months old. So obviously in previous years, we'd spend Ramadan at home or with family. We'd have like these big family gatherings, and this year is going to be completely different because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I wanted to make Ramadan really special, and I wanted to make the most of it. And a few weeks ago, when I started planning for Ramadan, I tried to think about what was important for us and for me personally to get out of this month. And I kept thinking about this idea or this theme of light. And I think you can agree that during this difficult time, we could all do with a little bit of light. So I wanted to shine a little bit of light into my own home, and I wanted to look at that in sort of different angles of how I can make myself feel better during this month, despite everything that's going on in the world and being away from family. So I'm sure many of us look at Ramadan in different ways. For some of us, Ramadan might be a month of giving. It's all about charity and looking after others and sacrificing some of your own time for others. Some of us might see Ramadan as a month of personal growth, or it could be a combination of everything, to be honest. I think this Ramadan is going to be even more interesting for all of us because there are so many lessons to learn about what is going on outside in the world right now. And I think we can really draw that into our own lives. And also, more importantly, being locked away from the world is really interesting because we're so used to saying yes to every opportunity, and we're so used to having a structure and routine, going to work and doing the school run and seeing friends and family, and we're always just constantly busy, and there's so much going on in our life, whereas now is the opportunity to just slow down. And Ramadan, I think, has come at a perfect opportunity in some ways because that sort of idea is even stronger now. So this Ramadan will definitely be interesting. So let me start by talking about what Ramadan was like growing up. Obviously, we live in the West, so in some ways, I guess, growing up with the month of Ramadan was difficult for many people. For me personally, I went to a school that had many Muslim girls, and we were constantly, our environment was always, with family. We had these big family gatherings. We had like Middle Eastern channels on TV where we could watch like Syrian dramas, and we had that sort of sense of Ramadan, that atmosphere and environment instilled in us from a young age. And obviously, being in the West is quite difficult to get that, but I'm really blessed and grateful that we did, because it kind of gave us a true insight into what Ramadan would have been like back home, for instance. And that atmosphere, I think, is really important to have from a young age, because it just makes it extra special. I mean, obviously, Ramadan is such a blessing in itself. So I have a lot of fond memories surrounding Ramadan. I think a lot of them, especially being with a family of six, we'd wake up for suhoor and my mum would create this incredible spread for us to make sure we were all well fed. We'd spend the day, praying and reading dua, helping my mum in the kitchen, watching Syrian dramas on TV. We'd have this big iftar, whether it was at home or with like relatives. And that was a continuous theme in our family. And even though, my mum and dad never had this sort of like Ramadan setup or anything in the house, but there was definitely that atmosphere. And I think that was something that is always really important for me to instill in my home, even though my children are young. And obviously the baby's not going to remember anything, but my son is 5, so these are going to be some of his earliest memories when he looks back. He is autistic, so his level of understanding might not be the best at the moment, but I did want these memories to be there around him, and I want him to be around this sort of environment from a young age. So a few weeks ago, when I started to think about this idea of light and how I want to create it in our home, and it's something I do every year. I think it's important to have these traditions. I decided to set up a little corner in our home just to sort of have that Ramadan feeling in the house. And I think it's important to create that sort of atmosphere, because it really helps you mentally get into Ramadan and get excited for it. So I set up the table with lots of foliage. If you go to my Instagram takeover on Fariha, the Instagram account Fariha Network, I've posted everything there, so you're welcome to see it there, or on my account as well, which is Life at Number 35. I would be really happy for you to join us there in our little community. So we set up at the table with lots of foliage and lanterns and candles and Ramadan Mubarak signs. I created a little tent for the children as well, because I wanted my son to have a little quiet area, and I set out some Ramadan books. There's so much great resources out there, and I think that's one thing that was really missing from our childhood, is the amount of resources that are available now for children. There's toys and books and so many Islamic options that you can buy for your children. I think it's really great to get them involved. So I create a little Ramadan basket for my son. Obviously the baby still doesn't understand anything, but he will join in the future. And every year I take out these books that we have and a few toys. He's really into listening to Quran, and I think it's great because it really helps to calm him down. And he loves learning about the Arabic language, like the letters. He's memorized it all. So there's lots of great resources out there to get children involved. And so we create this sort of environment in our home, and I think that's really important for myself, because it gets me excited about Ramadan, and it's great memories for the children to look back at. But then there are other aspects, obviously, as a homemaker. When I think about my home and how I want to prepare for Ramadan, especially at the moment, because my son isn't going to school because of the lockdown, it's quite difficult to manage everything with the children, and whilst fasting, it's enough to make anyone exhausted. So I try to prepare as much as possible in advance, whether it's like cleaning the house out and making sure everything is ready and prepared, making sure my pantry is ready and well stocked, planning out my meals. Meal planning is very important for me because it just helps me just, to stress less and to be calm. When it's Ramadan, you don't really want to overthink everything and you want to make sure everything runs as smoothly as possible. Obviously, you're going to have days where it's really difficult to manage everything, and I think that's important to recognize that you will have days like that, and it's okay, it's perfectly normal. But obviously, trying to prepare everything as much as possible will help you a lot to manage your home. And so, yeah, in the weeks leading up to Ramadan, I did a lot of preparation for that, and making sure I'd planned everything in terms of our meals and the cupboards, making sure everything's well stocked. I think another aspect that's really important because we're experiencing Ramadan in lockdown is, especially I think in like Middle Eastern and Asian cultures, we're very used to these like grand, lavish dinners and, using the best quality of food and spices. I think this year it's quite interesting to just sort of take a step back. And this is something I'm trying to implement a lot in myself as well, is when I think about what kind of meals I want to create for my family. It's important to obviously think about, how important it is to be more humble. I think that's the word. Be more humble with the way we go about planning, what we're eating at home. We don't, I think about this a lot because we're so used to being so blessed to be able to eat and drink whatever we want. I think it's important this month to sort of think about that sort of aspect, that there are obviously so many people around the world who are less fortunate, and there are so many people who, because of the lockdown, are unable to get the resources and essentials that they need. So it's definitely something I've tried to incorporate and reflect about a lot this month, when planning my meals for the family, is to take that into consideration a bit and to just be a little bit more humble and appreciate what we have. I mean, obviously, if we take a step back and think about Ramadan, what is the purpose of it? And that is to reflect and think about others who are less fortunate. And this is definitely why I think this lockdown happening this year is so important and vital to our understanding and learning. Because it does make you think. I think every year, when I sit down to break my fast, the first thought that comes to me is, I can't believe I'm breaking my fast, but there are so many people around the world who are going to continue being hungry today, and that's really difficult to stomach, that idea, and I'm sure many of us experience that. So definitely when planning for this Ramadan, it's been really important to sort of reflect and take that all into consideration. So yeah, planning for everything at home has been really essential, to just make it run a lot smoothly, and also to make sure that my children are busy. So my son is 5 and he's full of energy, and I've been trying to, and I think this is something that we've been talking a lot about on social media, about how this lockdown has been really difficult to manage with the children because they're not at school, and obviously they can get bored very easily because they can't even go outside and do the usual things that they're used to. So trying to keep them busy but also happy and calm and loved has been tricky. And I know at the beginning I tried to push myself a lot to try and make his days as best as possible, but gradually over the weeks, I think we're 5-6 weeks into this lockdown, I definitely started to realize that it's really important to slow down. And that's another thing I think that is so important in Ramadan is the idea that we should slow down and be more conscious of everything that we're doing. So my son has definitely taught me that, because at the end of the day, our kids, all they want is to be loved and cared for. And because this is such a new experience of what is going on, I think, the whole idea of homeschooling, as wonderful as it is a very new concept to us all. So especially now that we have Ramadan, we're going to be even more tired, and trying to keep everything together is going to be difficult. So I've definitely tried to think of how I can manage my time with him whilst fasting, and that is to make sure I have some ideas or of activities planned mentally in my head. I don't do routine or structure or anything like that. I think it's really great if it works for your children, and you should do it if it does. But if it doesn't, I don't think we should stress about it at all. But having some ideas mentally of what I can do with him that will keep him happy, and obviously keep my energy levels at bay is really important. I've tried to incorporate some Islamic or fun like Ramadan activities for him, whether it's colouring, like prayer mats or masjids, listening to Quran, learning about the Arabic alphabet. We've got like a really cute Play-Doh set for the Arabic alphabet, and also instilling some good values in our children. So my son's communication understanding isn't the best that it could be right now, but we still get him to help us clean up his toys, and I think that's something that is always wonderful to see in him when he gets up and he helps. So if you can do things like that with your children, I think it's really great, giving them little jobs around the house to keep them busy, but to teach them as well about really good Islamic values like kindness and looking after each other and caring for their little siblings. Or if you have older children who can get involved in like preparing the iftar, I think that's such a wonderful idea, talking about Ramadan and why it's so important and the values that we learn from it. There is so much out there that we can do with our children, and I think having those values instilled in them from a young age is really important, because our children are just like seeds, and if you plant the seed well and you care for the plant and you give it enough sun and light and water, then it's going to grow into a beautiful plant. And that's exactly what our children are like. They need to be nurtured well. So I think Ramadan is a great opportunity to connect with them. And like I said, slowing down is really important, because we can enjoy the aspects of our family life that we don't usually get to whilst we have such a busy routine in our day-to-day life. So yeah, planning some activities for children, planning for the home, preparing for Ramadan is really important, just to make things run a lot more smoothly. I think also Ramadan is really important for me personally, because despite everything that's going on and how difficult it can be to manage the home with the children at home and away from school and being away from friends and family, this year seems even more important that I personally look at myself and how I can implement habits or good habits that can help with my own personal growth. So, I was talking earlier about why Ramadan is so important to so many people, whether it's charity or personal growth or looking after the family. There's so many reasons, and I think it's all such a great combination. But for me as well, something that I really want to make use of this month, and I think a lot of people do with Ramadan. It's one of those things that we it's like a great opportunity to connect more with our deen and to connect more with Allah, and to practice religious habits that will help with our own personal growth. And I think that this whole idea of slowing down can really help us mentally as well. So it's something that I definitely want to implement, so, especially if I've taken the time to prepare for this month as much as possible and be as organized as possible. I want to make some room for my own personal growth, and I think that's important. And whether that's, I don't know, 10 minutes in the evening, 10 minutes in the morning, or longer if you can manage it, an hour possibly, just to shut yourself away from the world, just to have some time to reflect, listen to Quran, read some dua, just to pour your heart out to Allah. And especially during this time, just to think about all the things that we are so blessed to have, whether it's a home, a roof over our head, and food in the fridge, and our health, the ability to be able to fast this month, the ability to be able to just experience another year of Ramadan, and to have great friends and family around us, to be able to have a job, freedom. There's so many things to be blessed and thankful for. And I think it's such a great opportunity to just take a moment and just step back from the world and to just think about all of these things. I'm sure so many of us have faced such challenging times in our life. Or, if those of you who are in lockdown right now are facing really difficult moments, whether you're worried about your job or you're worried about your health and family, your children. I know for me personally, my son is really struggling with the lockdown because he loves school. He misses that structure and that routine and being able to be kept busy at school. So for me personally, it's been really difficult because I'm trying to manage his emotions and mine and everyone in the family, and trying to manage the home as well. But every time I think about it and I take a step back and I think about how blessed we are, that we are healthy and safe, and it's just such an important time to think about that. I think it's a great time for personal growth and to see how we can change ourselves. There are, I'm sure, so many things that we weren't happy about before this month started. There are so many things that we try to implement during this month that we should continue. Taking the time to work on ourselves, I think, is really important, especially as a homemaker. You're so busy all day. It's like you never have a minute to think about yourself and your own self-care and well-being. And I think this is a great opportunity this month to just focus on yourself. And you deserve to focus on yourself, because you're always looking after someone else. And you know how we always have New Year resolutions? I think Ramadan resolutions are always great, because we have a whole month to try and practice them. And that can be a great motivation to continue after Ramadan, whether it's reading more Quran or just taking time to reflect and think. I know as mothers we don't even have time to think. Personal growth. And also obviously I talk about personal growth a lot, but I also should mention that it's important to practice also values, whether it's to do with the environment. I know that a lot of people have been talking about how incredible our earth must be healing with everyone in lockdown, and there's no pollution or reduced pollution. So it's also really important to take care of our environment, to look after those around us, whether it's our neighbours, or just to be able to practice. I know so many of us, I'm sure, are picking up the phone more and like calling our family and friends and people we don't keep in touch with just to check in and connect. And I think that's just such a wonderful thing to see. And there's definitely a sense of community, whether it's within your own area or your country, or even just a global sense of community because everyone's going through the same thing. So yeah, taking that time to think about that stuff is so important, because like I said, as a homemaker, you're so busy focusing on the children and the family and cooking and cleaning. We don't always take the time to focus on ourselves and what habits we want to, practice as a member of society. So yeah, I'm going to try and wrap up because I'm sure I've spoken far too long. I think it's really important as a homemaker to try and organize as much as possible this month, just so that you can try and enjoy the month to the best of your ability and for things to run more smoothly. Remember, it's not a race, and I'm sure, especially on social media, there's going to be so many pictures and videos of incredible spreads and, people doing activities with their children. I think it's really important to try and ignore all of that. I mean, obviously, if it brings you inspiration, it's great. But if it creates any negativity for you because you feel like you're not doing enough, then definitely shut yourself away from all of that and focus on yourself, focus on your family and your children, your own home. Because at the end of the day, when Ramadan is over and you look back at the 30 days and how you spent it, I'm sure you would feel so much better if you knew that you had spent it well, going at your own pace, doing what's best for you. So, I am going to just touch on what a typical day might be for us as a family. The kids normally wake up quite early, so anywhere between 6 and 7ish. And obviously, my son has breakfast, which my husband deals with, and then we try and get ready for the day. Because it's Ramadan, obviously, we obviously aren't going to be eating until iftar. So I spend the next few hours trying to do some activities with my son. I try and do any of the more difficult things that I think he might be bored of quickly in the morning whilst the baby is napping. And that could be anything from like reading or working on phonics or spelling or numbers. And then I try and keep like the more fun activities in the afternoon. Some days, we don't do anything. I just let him just have like free flow play, or we do very minimal activities. But some days, they're more packed with activities. And like I mentioned previously, it has been difficult to engage him at home because he is autistic and he's used to being at school and he loves it. So he likes to be kept really busy and stimulated, and I don't always have the tools and the resources to do that. But I do my best, and I think we are trying to focus on each day as it comes. Some days are really bad and I just try and forget about them. And the next day I'm just like, you know what, it's a new day. Let me focus on today and try and make it as positive as possible. And sometimes, honestly, especially with everything that's going on and missing family and fasting, you get fed up really quickly. So trying to be as patient as possible is really important. And when he does get upset or emotional or he's quite challenging, I'm sure many of our children are testing our patience, I just try and stop and be more conscious of my breathing and my thoughts before I react, because I know that reacting in a negative way isn't going to make me feel any better. It's not going to make him feel better. It's just going to be it's just going to make the situation even worse. So I really try and take a step back and just focus. I actually always count with him. So we count down from 5, and I think sometimes that helps him relax, but helps me also relax indirectly. So yeah, try to practice my patience, especially this month. And I try and keep him as busy as possible. Well, obviously there are times where I let him have free flow play, and I think those are the best moments where I try to just get things done, prepare my iftar. I try to do as much as possible earlier in the day, just prep as much as possible so that I'm not like stressed out later on in the evening, especially as it gets closer to their bedtime. And also try and fit in time for myself. So during my husband's lunch break, I'll go upstairs and I'll do my prayers, and I'll try and just take, even if it's just 10 minutes, to just reflect or just to switch off, to be honest. Just think and have some quiet, and I think that's really important. So just trying to organize and manage your day as best as possible. Something I always practice, and I know it gets the better of me sometimes, and sometimes I'm more conscious of it, is just trying to remember that doing a little bit every day is better than nothing, and remembering that you are always going to do the best of your ability. So reading a page of Quran is better than nothing at all. Having 10 minutes of quiet and reflection is better than nothing. Making sure that you pray on time, is better than delaying it. So always trying to do the best of your ability, and to be more conscious of that, and to remind yourself constantly that as a mother, you are juggling so many different areas here, especially if you're in lockdown, and you should be proud of everything or every day that you get through, especially now that it's Ramadan. So when the kids are finally winding down for bed, I like to switch on Quran for my son. He absolutely loves it. It really calms him down, and it's nice just to have that in the evening. We do that every day, even if it's not Ramadan, and we've been doing that since he was a year and a half. And we get them into bed, and then obviously we have our iftar. Sometimes obviously my son, who's 5, doesn't need to go to sleep, so at that time, so he'll go to sleep after we have our iftar. But yeah, that's basically a typical day for us. So yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed listening to this podcast. I'm sure I've talked so much, but I hope that you are all safe and well, and that you really enjoy this month. Remember to take care of yourselves and your family, and to take each day as it comes. Focus on the day, and I want to wish you all a very happy Eid in advance, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. And assalamu alaikum from me, Zainab, at Life at Number 35. I hope you join me over there because we have a great opportunity. A great community. So yeah, have a wonderful day and I will see you soon, inshallah.